Greetings, one and all. Hey, Chris Courtney here, new Pragmatic. It just now dawns on me that I do not have. I'm gonna have to trim off the start of this because I don't have Discord open. I don't have Discord open to see if you folks are with me. Now I'm roaming around. See, that's what you get. You get me on a standing desk, I guess this isn't quite a standing desk. I mean, it could be a standing desk, but it's not like I'm using it as a standing desk at this exact moment. But I always like to have Discord open in its own place. Specifically, I like to have it open. On an iPad next to my machine, so I don't have to ever go back to it. I know it's kind of like a weird split screen thing that I do in the morning, but it's just the way I work. It's just the way I work. Anyway, and now I'm knocking down a bunch of Post-its and just having a good old time this morning. Hope you're well where you are, and I am seeing that many of you are well. Rebecca, see you checking in this morning. Kara, Tejel, Luigi. Sheltering in place seems to have us kind of all synced up together, which is a interesting benefit amidst the chaos. I do hope that you are all well. Kara, it is great to hear that your husband is doing better now. Anytime I hear of somebody, having even a slight cough, I go, okay, they're dead. But that's kind of where we're at with this whole shelter-in-place thing. I was burying myself all day yesterday because I had a little bit of a scratchy throat. I was like, oh God, it's over. But the COVID-19 hypochondriac kicks in very easily. But we've got some questions this morning, and I'm going to go ahead and jump into that. Let's do this. So Tejel's working through her Get Tested COVID-19 project. And again, that came from Tejel jumped onto the Help with COVID-19, I believe it's .com. I want to check that real fast. Let's check it out. helpwithcovid.com. Helpwithcovid.com is where that came from. And she's working with that team now, and I do want to check her notes because she had some specific notes. We also have Rebecca. Rebecca submitted her case study. She's writing up a new case study for a new project. So this is her first addition to her portfolio outside of projects that she did. So she's done projects since finishing her portfolio and putting it out there. So now she's in the process of adding work to that. So we're going to take a look at that and how she's progressing there. But with Tejel, says that her and her team had a brainstorming session last night. We decided to add a map on top of the list view. So yesterday, the version that we saw had a map off to the side and then had a list view. So list view was option 1, map off to the side was option 2. I really liked the list view, but I also liked the map view, and I suspected that like the list view would click through to an individual site that would have the map, but having a map view up top with the options below, that also works. It will have there are some considerations that naturally come to mind there, Tejel. One would be in a lot of places a vertical orientation might work better. In other places a horizontal orientation might work better. What you're probably going to end up coming down to is something that's a bit more of a square or tall rectangle than a sliver. And based on what I initially saw here, we've got like a sliver. So, this is really idealized. Now, what I would say is, if we come back, if like this is just gonna center on the first option that's available, and then because you can't count on 2 being there, you just can't. But if I click on 2, um, what's interesting here is like does this part scroll and this move around? Like what is the interaction there? That becomes the next question that I have. Does this basically unscroll, lock to the top, and then the rest of this scrolls through? Because obviously these control. This. If we look at it, that's pretty deep to hold like you can't keep this and this. I think it's going to have to be a situation where you scroll up, and with this map up here, this might be one of these situations where this this has to get a little more, a little shorter. I mean, you may. I mean, this is a big addition, and to see everything. And I'm thinking about just as you scroll. I want to be able to see what's going on. If I were to click here on 2, seems like this should take me to 2. If I click on 1, it takes me back to 1. Although, it's interesting. I could see a map view, list view sort of situation as well, where you you have the map essentially. Let's come back to map. Let's come back to that map view, list view concept. So you have basically your map here, because honestly, when you look at this, you have all the basic information that you need already listed in that box. I would consider this, and then there's always you can come in and put together like 3 lines to indicate. The classic here is 3 lines, and then the dots. So that says there's a list view. Now you may want to make it a little easier to see, but put a list view over here, and then you have the ability. I don't even necessarily know if you need anything else other than that, but when you hit list view, it takes you to a view that is just this, and when you're in map view, it's just this. So I don't necessarily know if the combination of both is ideal, just because it gets really deep on the screen. And if you are going to keep both, I would simplify this row here, mainly because it's really deep and it's taking up a lot of space. It's not that I don't like it; it's just that it's taking up a lot of space. Also, look out for the doctor icon here. So like there's a couple of things here that I'd want to take a look at. The doctor icon there's a lot of detail here, and I'm worried about it once it gets down into this area. This might be where I come back with a and I'm just gonna kind of freehand this here. Where's my drawing tool? There it is. So this might be where I come back with a, and of course this is like comically bad, but hey, always come through and straighten these things up if you want to. Which you should. You should want to. But the whole point here is you've got the ability to make like a stethoscope or something that's a little simpler. There's also, I'm just freehanding this really fast. I would probably come back and add tips to the stethoscope, but I would not draw them. I would like have them, and they actually probably would be more like little rectangles, right? They'd be like little rectangles. And they would be indented a bit, kind of like headphones. They'd probably round the corners on them. Yeah, you get the idea. You get the idea. But my whole point is that that's going to shrink down and replicate. That's comically bad too. Well, I'm not really great this morning at my drawing. But there's less line work here. That's ultimately what I'm trying to get at is less line work equals easier to replicate, and all you're doing is trying to get across the stethoscope concept, just in smaller form. And there's other things that you can pull in that would be simpler as well, but appointments is that's a much easier way one to identify. A lot of times that would be just instead of the boxes the way that it's currently drawn, you could do the same thing, but reverse it out. Like, let's just get rid of that line work. This is something that you've all heard me bang the drum on before. If you're not doing 7 days, whether it's 4 days or 3 days, it doesn't matter. I do like having it evenly spaced. But that's the same idea. Same exact idea. If you decided that you wanted to have the rings, you could have the rings if you wanted to. I would probably just do those like this, and then put like a corner on it. And again, this is all about how do I simplify that shape. I do it like that. And if I wanted to make it a little shorter, I could. But the whole it looks like it has mouse ears on it, like it's going to Disney. Well, technically, if we're just drawing and making fun of ourselves at the moment, this is what it would look like if it had mouse ears and it was going to Disney. Like, it would be totally like that. Now it looks like dead mouse. Anyway, I would simplify the icons wherever possible. This is simple enough. This, boy, that one's interesting. Type. You've got the two icons together. Walk up, drive through. Do you have both icons? Yeah, that one's tough because you've got a couple of different ideas coming together, but then they're broken apart up here, indicating that it's like different sections. Yeah, I'm not quite sure what to do with that one, but so there's a couple of thoughts. Let's come back really fast to your other questions. Big question in regards to this is about adding color. I tried a version where blue icons. What do you think? I like the gray one better. Icons was going to be the spot where I would have looked at color if I was going to insert color into this. Um, but again, inserting color when you have a lot of when it's a lot of line work, it's not going to be as substantial. So let's just take a look at the appointments. Here's appointments, and I'm going to just really quickly group these. And let's make a union selection of that. Let's take it away. Let's add these to that. And now let's change the color to your blue. Color is going to stand out more the less line work that you have. It just is. So if you're really wanting to go with color, this is where I would encourage you to use iconography that doesn't have a lot of line work. And the doctor one that came to me. If I go over here to Noun Project, I bet I can find something that gets me pretty close mentally to where I would like to be. Medical. Let's see what we come up with. It should be the. Oh yeah, well that's a good idea. Cross is interesting. There's the stethoscope. Here's the wings. Yeah, that's pretty interesting actually. Screening. Part of me is, and then there's the EMS thing. That's kind of interesting as well. So there's some options there that are interesting, and again, like if you came over here to operating hours and you really wanted the blue to stand out, do it as a solid circle, and then reverse out the line work. If I can get in here and draw for a second. And I use, it's kind of weird. I use rectangles here where I could obviously, and I'm just doing this to make it easier for alignment purposes. Yes, I guess it's like it's 12:15 or something. Actually, I like your top of the hour approach, so I'm going to say it's 3 p.m. Right? So let's go ahead and group that. And now same idea. It does look a bit like an L though, so I can make I guess now it's like 9 a.m. Or no, it's like 9:30. Yeah, something like that. Anyway, you get the idea. If you want to, do the angle, you could obviously do that, but it's about the color. Getting the color in there is key. I do like it. I do like getting that color in there. I like it more when the icons aren't so heavy on the line work. But that's just a point of personal preference. I think that's the logical place to do it. I don't see any other like clear places to do it aside from maybe. hold with me. There's a couple of ways you could do it here. Yeah, let's just go bold. Yeah, obviously, if you're going to do this, this needs to be your search field itself needs to be filled. And right now you got it as that. I would bring it up. And now you've got this bold. You could always carry it up into your header as well if you wanted to. You could just do it up there. This would be more of the target mentality. You could also carry it up there if you wanted to. Target being having like the big red splashes and reversed out white type and whatnot. I don't necessarily, the spacing isn't quite where I'd want it to be for this sort of treatment, but it is something worth looking at. If you're wanting to go bigger with it, let's see what other questions you've got here as we continue to kind of bounce around. Where else do I need to emphasize color? Well, I do think that. Let's come back here to your Figma file. There's not a lot of logical places to do it aside from if you want to do a big swash at the top. I think your usage in the actual listings is appropriate. I don't want to call too much more attention to get directions. For me, color is always about, if I'm using it, it's purposeful. Okay, so I want to make sure that when I'm using it, it's being done with an outcome in mind. It's for action. If I'm using it, like what I showed a moment ago, where I had it in the background, that was purely for branding. So then, if you use it like that, it's less impactful. And then you've got to really come back with like big, bold buttons. Because then color, when you have a big swash of color, like we showed a moment ago, you can't then come back with like a dainty button. Everything's got to like step up to that level. And again, I think companies like Target do an excellent job of aligning their branding with the boldness of their overall design aesthetic. Does it work here? Don't know. Everything would have to come up though. Okay. I think the gray is fine. It's very safe. I do think that at some point, as I know you're moving into mobile, there's going to be a question of, okay, what do we do with the navigation? How do I indicate that there are layers to this? And one of the things that I've mentioned, I know you're about to move into navigation, is it might be, and I'm just kind of drawing because I know that like your nav will probably slide out in some way. That might be a spot where you come back with one of these blues, to indicate like the navigation's on its level, and then everything else is below that. So, and then it slides away and comes back in, and you get that idea. But you can use it for layers. You can use it for action. You can use it for branding. I wouldn't though use it purely for branding. And from that perspective, if you decided to use it for nav, I think that's where you come in and like it's existing up here, and then you're leaving the rest of this alone. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with it. Let's take a look at the rest of your questions. Does the pop-up on the map work? I added a green check mark if appointments. An alert if it is. Should I add an alert in the list next to required? Let's take a look. Well, you know, let's talk about usage here. You know, this appointments not required is language, okay? You're not. Oh, by the way, you got a misspelling here in appointments, in the label. You're following the same. You know, if I were to say appointments, that would be a check mark just in the row. It wouldn't be. Doctor screen would be the same way. It'd be a check mark or an X. Doctor screen. And then the question with doctor screening is, does that mean I get a doctor screening there, or I require a doctor screening to go there? You can't use a check mark here, because a check mark that says doctor screening could be taken that you go there and you get a doctor screening. Check mark. X. Oh, they don't do doctor screenings there. But because you say doctor screening not required, it becomes very clear that oh, I need a doctor screening before I can go here. Versus appointments. If I have a check mark for appointments, that means they accept appointments. But if I have an X here, that means they don't accept appointments and it's walk up. So I think the way you've got the language set up works. Like drive-through, check. Walk up, check. Or X. Drive-through, it means I can drive up. Walk up, it means I can walk up. Walk up being X'd off means I cannot walk up to this location. I have to drive up. That, the check mark X dynamic works. Over here, adding it to doctor screening or appointments, which I would do, if I was going to do it for appointments, I would also do it for doctor screening, but it doesn't work there. The language is very clear, and if you lose the language, it becomes unclear what those rows are telling us. So I think you have it the right way. I would make this red and maybe even bold where something is required. Like maybe say, okay, we're just going to come in and we're just going to say appointments required, appointments not required. And the required part is really the difference. I guess the flip side of this, you could say required check mark, required X, but then you get into a problem here because, if we were really doing, like, let's say required, if you had required as the bit, oops, sorry, not sure how that's drawn in there. Oh, it took me off to the side of the page. Got it. So if you had it like this, that could work. So required, check mark. Like this language actually, and then this would be not required, and that gets the X. So from that perspective, so long as we've got the language, so long as we've got enough language, oh, I'm sorry, we wouldn't have not required, we have required, and required. Required. Doctor screening, required? No. Appointments, required? Yes. Okay? So we couldn't go with just doctor screening. That's confusing. But we could go with required X, required check mark. You could do that. And that would bring it in line with the usage that you have over here. So I guess I've probably like looped around on that. I would say that what's interesting here is I'm looking at how the information is organized. You have the hours. You have the hours packaged together with the address here, but here it's broken apart. And I think that however you've decided that you're treating the information in the pop-up, that's basically how you should be deciding to treat the information down below. So if operating hours is not in its own column up here, I wouldn't have it in its own column down here. I'd have it one-to-one. And this is going to be helpful in the collection of basically the organization. Like those elements all ride together in all orientations when it's displayed on a map, when it's in mobile view, when it's in desktop view. So I would if this is going to be the way it's going to be, then I would switch these around. Otherwise, I would also consider, like, instead of having type here, I would have operating hours in this first column, because then the data could be organized like, okay, so this information's all together, then this is the second column, and then we default down to some icons. That also gets me into this type being a singular area, single column in it's a single column in the wide display, but it's two columns in this display up here. So I think there is some struggle here, trying to figure out, what's going on. But I would say if you moved operating hours into the basic information of the site, then you could come back with, drive-through walk-up. But then that breaks like the checkmark X usage there. So it's kind of hit and miss. There's like some inconsistencies between the two that I would want to iron out. And I'm not completely sure which direction you should go, because obviously you're collaborating with the team. But that's what I'm seeing. I'm seeing a different way. I'm seeing this organized differently than the way this is organized, and I would consider coming back through and changing that around so that they were one-to-one. And what can I do to make it look better? Honestly, I think that if you could come through and it's interesting. I just had an idea of like removing the icons and using simpler icons that had color in them to indicate like whether these things were available. Like basically you flip the icon, like this icon is showing up, like maybe there's drive-through and walk up as columns to this, and then the icons show up instead of the data down here, because the data is very much required, not required. Drive through, walk up. I could do that with icons, and it could just be a series of icons. Um, but I like the clarity of the typography. Um, so there's something here in the organization of it that I think needs refinement. Um, I do like the map. We were talking about the yesterday. The map adds a bit of being able to see, oh, where is that exactly? Is it north, south, east, or west? I do think that looking at this in terms of a map view or a list view might be helpful, so that you could have uh, a greater view rather than just the horizontal. I do know you have this expand up here, which is nice, but you know I either want to see the whole thing or I want to see the list. I don't necessarily know um, if I'm going to use that expand much. And when you get into mobile, I think you're gonna have that toggle between list and map, and why not just have it be consistent across? So for me, this is a lot about consistency. It's consistency of the organization of the data. It's consistency in the orientation of the different views that are possible, and I think I would focus on that. And then past that, when it comes down to, ooh, how could I make this look better? Consider going bold with the color usage if you're going to use it. I right now, like we looked at it. I guess it was over here. If you're going to do icons, make them less line oriented, more shape and removal of shapes from within inside of a shape, so that it's a bit bolder. Okay. So that's my 2 cents there. But overall, I think you've got a lot going on with this team. It's very very exciting to see you moving along so quickly. Like day two, and like you've got a couple of views, and you're working with people to kind of sort out what's going on. So I think you're doing very well. Um, Rebecca's got her care site package. Care site is the CS case study. It's not computer science. It's her CS case study for care site. And just rolling through here on the loop. Um, so I, hmm, try to pick up on what this is. We'll need to add. Okay, so I did the writing for the care site case study. We'll need to add for all the A/B testing for each design issue. Okay, so you've got more writing coming. Would love feedback on the writing. I bought a computer screen template to use as a case study hero unit image. Having difficulty getting a screen to fit inside. Okay, so let's see here. She's got a straight up design question. And I'm looking for her care site. Where did it go? Is it this? No, that's Knife Doctor. Rebecca, I'm not sure I see care. We'll have to circle back on that. I'm not seeing the link for care site in here. But let's focus on the case study because this is here. So, so you were UX lead. This was a 3-week project. The team was a UX agency intern and a visual designer, and you were using Figma, Sketch, and Zeppelin. It's interesting. Like I always get interesting when three tools that are very similar are used at the same time. It's like, wow, okay. Um, so interesting workflows that different people have different workflows, and it's always interesting to see that sort of close overlap. I get Zeppelin at times, but Sketch and Figma. It's like, I was called in to work with the agency owner on one of his top clients. Uh, uh, the agency and client were at a crossroads in the project. It went through some different rounds of iterations and designers, but it still suffered from. It went through. Okay, you got some and some in here. I would say it went through a few different rounds of iterations and iterations. Um, I don't necessarily know if I would say and designers. It's just somebody was working on it. I think it's implied that there was designers. Um, so it went through a few different rounds of iteration, but the project still suffered from persistent issues. Issues. My role was to come in and help the agency refine the project while also presenting the work and maintaining a strong and establishing strong positive communication with the client. So I'm going to come in, refine the project, present the work, and establish strong communication with the client. Since this project had a very tight deadline, I was joining very much in the middle of it. I needed to learn as much as I could about users from existing research. I think I've simplified this. I was joining the project. I was joining the project late in the process, and I was joining the project late in the process on a tight deadline, and needed to learn as much as I could about the users from existing research. That allows you to again. So much of this right now is we're just kind of whittling words. Like okay, let's lose 3 words here. Let's lose six words there. Whittle. Okay. I relied heavily on briefings from the agency owner, who knows these users intimately, having worked with them and tested products on them for many years. I worked closely with the agency owner, who knew. I worked closely with the agency owner who had existing research for this user group. Okay, I worked closely with the agency owner who had existing. We've got existing research in there a couple times, so there's a little bit of editing that I would do there. But I worked closely with the agency owner who. I worked closely with the agency owner, leveraging their library of prior research on this user group. That's where we go with it. Again, we're trying to whittle. We're trying to make sure we're not using the same word twice close together. And now we can get into the client. The client care side is a advanced reporting and analytics as a service solution that delivers actionable data to reduce. CareSite is an advanced reporting and analytics as a service solution focused on reducing risk and improving to improve caregiver patient experience. Like the actionable data is like just tell me that they're focused. what are they trying to do? The actionable data, like that gets a little, like we've already got analytics as a service. Um, that says data, so like removing actionable data is probably a key there. They have decades of experience in nursing management clinical workflows and have been working with the agency I was hired to design, hired by. Um, okay, so they have decades of experience in nursing management and clinical workflows and have been working with um, the agency for over 10 years. Um, CareSite, um, CareSite has decades of experience in nursing management and clinical workflows. The agency and CareSite been working to have been working together for over 10 years. Like I was trying to figure out, like, we need a period and then we need to come back in and we need to talk about how these two collaborate. It doesn't matter. It says, and have been working with the agency I was hired by. Like that, just like there's too much in there. Like let's talk about how the client and the agency work together. We already know you're brought in. Users do the extremely high stress situations. Hospitals need to be hospitals need to be obsessively data driven. This particular project had 3 user types to design for. I would say that, okay, so hospitals are extremely high stress environments, and are increasingly data driven. This particular project had three user types to design for. I'm just trying to flip hospitals, like setting, people, nurses, healthcare admins, care site system admins, and then here nurses, concerns, ideas, healthcare admins. That's interesting. I think there needs to be something said so that you can kind of get into the concerns and ideas, like why nurses are clearly your primary user. So they're the first person you mentioned. B, the only one that has concerns and ideas. I would like put a little bit of information. This was my while there were 3 different types of users, nurses were my core focus, as they are X. They're the main user of they're the day-to-day user of the system. They are the they're the they're the first person to come in contact with the data that can use the data. There's got to be something there to explain why are nurses first. You talk a bit about like the quandary of being a nurse, but we don't talk about why we're focused on nurses. So I would flip some of that above the concerns and then come back with concerns and ideas. I might pull back on some of this. So this bit here, nurses are also split attention users due to the nature of their job. They cannot dedicate, like, that might be one of the reasons why you focused on nurses specifically. And I think that if you can, I think that would be a very good way to kind of get into why nurses were the primary focus rather than kind of burying it in the concerns. Um, yes, I understand it's concern, but I see like PTSD and you know, there's a lot about PTSD in that concerns area, and I think that's more of a concern. Split attention users due to the nature of their job. That's that's more of a here's why we need to focus on these people. Um, Want to add some conversational personal tones to the interface to reduce stress and give nurses a sense of appreciation and caring for their well-being. Other than that, all the language needed to be very clear cut and concise. So this is a communication platform. Like that bit there um, makes it clear that I'm trying to make this more personal. I'm trying to take the edge off, basically. Um, like nurses, so healthcare admins, and again, healthcare admins and care site system admins are treated very secondarily here. Um, so let's move on down. Problem. There are 3 different users designed for. It's kind of interesting. Problems kind of buried here. I might make reference to the fact that just you can make it as kind of an aside. This is a complex project with 3 target users, 3 different users with 3 different users to design for. I'd make mention to it here so that when you come down to it in the users, it's kind of the idea that you're targeting 3 different groups is already kind of known. And I think that can be moved up. So the problem statement here, you keep it, you have it, yeah, I don't know. I think you can pull this up. So my process, I altered the design process to fit both the needs of client and agency, and prioritize progress over details. I might just call this the process, or the plan. The plan was to the plan was to prioritize progress over details and reestablish communication between the agency and client to get them talking again, while also sorry while also delivering on the criteria. Yeah. Prioritize progress over details, get the client and agency talking again while delivering something to address the needs of these 3 user groups. Screens, A/B testing. So you've wrote that you have some more information coming here. There's going to be a lot of version 1, version 2. So that's to come. You said visual assets. Yeah, I'm meaning screenshots. Let's show the progress, wireframes, like whatever, before afters through this area. What you learned, this stuff can stay in the case study. This stuff can be lifted out for an experience page on your site. Um, the project was under a tight deadline, which forced me to prioritize the bigger picture and not the details. The project was under a heavy deadline, forcing me to prioritize the bigger picture. Um, the small um, once that was addressed, we could come back to adjust the details later. Leadership, I've managed remote teams on projects before, but as a UX lead, this was my first time. This was the first time I was asked to mentor other designers while guiding them through the project. That works. This included going back and creating user personas and flows with the junior UX designer and visual designer in order to explain how to make user-centered design decisions. I don't know if you have to put user-centered in the brackets there. I think I would just say how to make user-centered design decisions. My role was to let the team exercise and learn to work. My role was to let them exercise and learn to work together, giving them confidence they need to do so. So my role was to guide the team to work together, provide the confidence they needed, while making sure the project was up to par for the client. So that sentence needs some work. It was an exercise in balance because I wanted to trust these designers, but since they were hourly employees, I had to give the right guidance and guardrails to cover both the agency owner and the client's needs. This was an exercise in balance because while I wanted to trust the designers, they were also hourly employees. Period. My job, a big portion of my job was to provide the guidance and guardrails needed to protect both the agency owner and the client. I learned a lot about timing and how concept changes can affect the overall build of a product. Learned a lot about timing and how ongoing deliberation can affect the overall, like the concept changes. Like that's an interesting issue. I need to unpack that a bit more. I also learned about project planning. Being brought into a project relatively late can be a disadvantage, but it can also be an opportunity to truly help make a difference in so many people's lives. I don't know. I don't know. Like there's like a hallmark moment in that sentence, like make a difference in so many people's lives. Like there's something that just like it's just too perfect. Being brought in late on a project is like it's rough. It should teach you about why you don't want to be brought in late on a project. why you want to have a greater impact. I think that the trick is being brought in on a project. Being brought in late on a project can be a disadvantage, but that doesn't mean that the outcome has to be bad. You want to spin it somewhat positive. You don't want to spin it like, wow, but it came out perfect. You want to like take it up a half notch. Like, yeah, it's late is bad, but it doesn't have to be. There are opportunities to protect the agency client, protecting the agency client relationship moving forward, and playing a part in that is great. Um, Coming in and helping these nurses, that's a fantastic opportunity. Um, you know, but you want to talk specifically about how those impacts work, not just it's it's an opportunity to make a difference in so many lives. Who are we talking about? Okay, so like just like unpack it a bit. I know it doesn't end up on the high, like you take it from a very dark place to a very like and I don't want to make that kind of move because it makes it sound like it's magic. I don't want this to feel like magic. I want it to feel like, wow, this is real. Yeah, there's disadvantages here, but I got to help the agency. I also got to help these nurses, and I think that's the real key: naming the people. So many people. It's just too broad. Name the people, and I think you'll feel better about the outcome of that effort. Okay, so I'm gonna check feedback loop. It's clear. Yeah, that's where we're at right now. And also, so I've been breaking things apart. Exercise 10, the designing components exercise, worked on that, and you can see like the resources for review just gets longer and longer and longer. This is because components is so freaking important to your ability to create and expand upon the create like really efficient projects to work on. Like if you're not using components, if you're not using styles, you're just kind of running around chasing your tail in circles. So just know that if you're, we released this earlier in the week, but I keep this was like one giant monolithic thing when I started. And as you can see, like there's 2 videos, and now there's 2 additional addendums, and then there's the Brad Frost and Heavyweight and the design system repo. It's all in there for you to dig into. But just know that I've been continuing to work on this because it was just so long before. I don't want you ever feeling like you're reading War and Peace when you're working through this stuff. So I am trying to break things apart and make it a bit more bite-sized. Okay. Yeah, I think we're going to leave it there for today. I'm Chris Courtney. This has been the Feedback Loop for Tuesday. I hope that you are all doing well. Thanks again. I love seeing people in the daily stand up. It gives me a real sense of like how everybody's doing. It's an important time to be checking in because let's face it, the world is while the world is sheltering in place, it can be kind of the separation is real. So love having you folks here. Keep the questions coming, and otherwise I will chat with all of you again on Wednesday. Take care.